So this whole polar bear is the ultimate land predator debate, yeah, I get it. The polar bear has that final boss aura. I mean, when scientists named it Ursus maritimus, aka the sea bear, they might as well have just said, yeah, good luck. You're not safe anywhere. In fact, one of these bears was straight up recorded swimming 426 miles in the span of 9 days. Yeah, you can't hide from this thing. And on top of that, they have the personality of a landlord collecting rent in blood. In fact, polar bears are so feared that they're one of the only animals on Earth to have a flea on sight notice. And listen people, I'm not exaggerating these feats. Polar bears have been seen straight up dragging beluga whales out of water like it's hauling groceries, crushed through thick ice to merc seals, and one running at you at full speed of 25 miles per hour and slamming into you has the same energy as a 50 caliber bullet. But before y'all start glazing this thing, let me clarify something about the animals that could beat it. No, I'm not about to talk about lions and tigers here. They get stomped, just cope. And also, no, I'm not going to be talking about elephants here too because I mean, it's too obvious. The elephant literally crushes. So I guess I gave y'all a free bonus one right there. But enough of the hype. We got to get some baseline stats of the bear so we know what we're working with here, okay? So just how large is a polar bear? Well, mature males typically weigh in between 900 to 1200 pounds. But other than their weight, they are very tanky. Yeah, they carry with them that dad bod with thick fur and insulating fat that literally grows up to 2 inches deep. In fact, they're so durable that straight up handguns won't do anything to them. But fighting wise, it gets interesting. Polar bears are basically a Joe Rogan fever dream. They're expert grapplers and have sharp claws and strong jaws to turn any enemy into abstract darts. And just one last thing here. They have decent cardio. They've been seen fighting for multiple minutes on end. Yeah, I'd sure like to see any of y'all do that. But they do have a propensity to actually overheat because of their very thick fur. So in a prolonged fight, they run the risk of overheating. Anyways, enough of that. What does all the information I have given you mean? Well, any animal wishing to beat this thing must be so large and powerful that they can straight up humble the bear in strength, or be so durable that they survive the initial mauling before the bear tires out. That's the bar. Now let's finally get into animals that could defeat a polar bear in a 1v1. And by the way, these animals are in no particular order. Okay, so first up, we have the Kodiak bear. Wait, what? There's another bear out there that can defeat this Arctic menace? Well, yeah, kind of. Now, not gonna lie, this is actually closer to a 50-50, but in all honesty, the Kodiak bear probably has this in the bag. So first up, what are we working with here? How is there another bear that can rival the Arctic eviction notice? Well, the Kodiak bear is a distinct subspecies of brown bear living isolated on the Kodiak Islands. And these things are often regarded as the same size as a straight up polar bear and battle for the title the world's largest bear. You see, adult males usually fall between 600 to 1400 pounds, with the biggest mature males averaging in around 1000 to 1200 pounds. Okay, so basically just imagine a grizzly bear that took steroids. Yeah, since we all know how much of a demon a grizzly bear is, you can kinda see why a polar bear would be sweating in a 1v1. And whether you rep team Kodiak or polar bear for the biggest bear title, I'm gonna be very honest here and say size-wise, there really isn't too much difference to where it actually would make a difference, which makes this fight come down to straight up body structure. And this is where the Kodiak has some sneaky advantages. Pound for pound, the Super Saiyan brown bear carries with it a larger shoulder region, hence the reason why it has a large hump on its back, which is something the polar bear kinda just lacks. On top of that, Kodiaks pack a broader skull and a more compact body. So translation, well, in a straight up wrestling match, the Kodiak would be sturdier, have better control / grappling capabilities thanks to its heftier shoulder region and broader frame. Now, a nice added bonus for the Kodiak is its better stamina and less heating issues. To put simply, polar bears have very thick blubber and dense winter coats that are built to insulate heat in the Arctic, right? So in a prolonged fight, which I mean it's almost always gonna be if they were to fight one another, the Kodiak's superior anatomy pound for pound and its less wintry build would make it likely lead into a victory more often than not. But yeah, that's brother against brother. How about we move on to a good old natural rivalry? Next up, we have the Pacific walrus. Yeah, this actually happens in real life, people, and let me tell you, even fully grown polar bears hesitate to tempt their fate against one. At the very bare minimum, see what I did there? Anyways, this might be a 50-50 with me kind of leaning towards the bull walrus majority of the time. So first off, the size mismatch here is pretty brutal. We're talking about a 2,000 to 4,000 pound unit with tusks the size of ice picks. In fact, the hide alone weighs over 1,100 pounds. Yet just the skin alone of the walrus literally weighs as much as a polar bear. And by the way, it's often noted that their skin is so thick and rubbery that a polar bear's claws often leave flesh wounds and fail to puncture the actual muscle. So if a polar bear's bite and claws can't reliably just bust through, how is the fight supposed to end quickly? Let me tell you, it isn't. And let's not sleep on the walrus's tusks here, okay? They are very long, sharp, and with a good swing, you bet it can puncture holes into a polar bear. But to give the bear its credit, I mean, the walrus wouldn't really be as nimble as the bear. But remember, bears don't really jump on the back of things like big cats do, right? And when seen by actual footage of polar bears trying to do that to walruses, I mean, they just kind of fall off. And even then, the polar bear would likely just exhaust itself before anything bad happens to the walrus. So honestly, the sheer mass and tusks would give the walrus a W. But listen, people, when talking about straight up sheer mass, the next one on the list literally embodies that concept. Enter the southern elephant seal. Yeah, and this thing is every bit of a nightmare as you would expect. And you know what? This is another menace everyone looks over. Bulls weigh anywhere from a casual 3,300 pounds to an absurd 8,200 pounds. Yeah, that thing is about the same size as a pickup truck that wants to wrestle. If a polar bear struggles to take down bull walruses naturally, what makes you think this would even be fair? These things are in a league of their own and built like blubbery tanks. But besides their mass, because we get it, right? They are big. What's actually insane is their huge skull backed with a powerful bite. I mean, seriously, have you actually seen one? Just take a look. A southern elephant seal skull literally makes a grizzly bear's look like a toy. But think about it like this. While the bear may be able to kind of have fun and move around, it eventually has to get up close to bite. And when that happens, it would be met with a body slam from the seal and be greeted with a powerful bite that can rival its own. And yeah, if you have ever seen any of these obese Squidwards fight, you know they love to ram, crush, and chomp down, often leaving their victims a bloody mess. So it would eventually beat the bear so bad, it would want to make it join the Akatsuki. Oh, and speaking of making the bear no pain, the next one on the list could definitely do so. Enter the gar. Now, not gonna lie, okay? This would definitely be a close one, but in all honesty, if they were to encounter each other in the wild for whatever reason, I see the bull winning more often than not. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't this just another cow? Yeah, you're wrong. This thing is a tiger-tested battle tank that's basically a water buffalo on steroids. I mean, seriously, just look at how muscular this thing is. You see, adult bulls weigh anywhere between 1,600 to 2,200 pounds, with outliers even heavier. Yeah, that's basically 2 times the size of the polar bear, and you know what else? They are very strong and have a mean temper to make any predator not want the beef. And by the way, they live in tiger territory, so that's saying something. In fact, they're so powerful that gars have been documented lifting other gars off the ground in head-on collisions. And if they can do that to another bull, imagine what they could do to a bear half its size. And not to mention that they have very sharp horns that can gore anything it sees. This is almost like the whole grizzly versus bison situation here, okay? In real life, the bison's horns and ramming fighting style are adapted to beat the bear by slamming into their rib cage when the bear tries to stand up and grapple. So basically, the gar could do the same thing here. And I'm gonna be real, I don't really see how the polar bear could properly control the gar without getting smashed to the ground or thrown out like bad leftovers. Now, there is a win con for the bear where it could maybe wear out the gar by repeatedly attacking its back, but more often than not, the bear would get humbled and not want the beef. And just like that, we're down to our last 2. But speaking of animals that have anger problems and humbles anything around, let's move on to the next one. Enter the hippopotamus. This is what happens when a walking eviction notice meets a do not disturb sign with war crimes baked into its temper. Yeah, these animals are one of the few that save the herbivore's reputation from not being complete fodder. A bull hippo clocks in between 3,000 to 4,000 pounds and stretches between 10 to 15 feet long. So just by pure weight alone, the hippo hippo is literally 3 to 4 times the size of a single polar bear. And a polar bear even wanting to scrap with one is an IQ test it will fail and be taught a lesson on survival of the fittest. Hippos are very broad creatures that have insane durability due to their very thick skin. In fact, their skin is so thick it can grow up to 2.5 inches deep. And guess what? They've been known to straight up shrug off rifle shots. And given that hippos have a very wide and tubular body, the bear would be very hard pressed to land any meaningful bites on it. I mean, it would be like you trying to bite a soccer ball. You see, not very good leverage given its rounded shape. And I think we're all forgetting the most important part here other than its sheer durability, which is its mouth that can back up its mean attitude. Like seriously, it is so much larger than the bear's it's not even funny. Like it will literally be able to put the bear's skull in its mouth and still have room to chop down a watermelon. And you see those 2-foot long tusks and teeth? They're made of ivory and would literally spear holes through the bear despite the polar bear's sheer tankiness. Now, I do respect the polar bear here. It does have a devastating bite and sharp claws, but in a straight up 1v1 against a hippo, it's getting stomped pretty hard here. Oh, and speaking of ragdolling animals, we finally are on to our last one. But before I mention it, I just want to throw up some honorable mentions. There's only gonna be a few. I think these animals could maybe make the polar bear sweat a bit, but it's really a toss up on who wins. Anyways, the last one is the white rhino. Yeah, this animal is where hopes and dreams come to die. It's a straight up biological bulldozer with zero respect for anything in its way. Yeah, this thing tosses around cars for fun, throws around and carries buffaloes on its snout like it's a prop. And there was even one instance a rhino made a warthog believe it could fly for a second. Yeah, that's cool and all, but just how big is this battle tank? Well, mature males average anywhere between 4,500 to 5,000 pounds. With a shoulder height that's about as tall as the average man. Yeah, that's straight up 4 to 5 times larger than the polar bear. And that weight is actually solid muscle with 2-inch thick hide. Like I said, it's a battle tank that runs on pure bad intentions. The bear is not controlling this thing in the slightest and would literally be flipped like pizza dough. And we're forgetting the most important thing here too. Its 2-foot keratin horn. Yeah, this thing is built to turn carnivores into wildlife documentary highlight reels. It's also noted that entire lion pride straight up struggle to even take this thing down. And if a lion pride can't reliably do that, what makes you think a bear that's prone to overheating would? Yeah, the rhino would be charging at the bear, ramming and goring it until it gets turned into a lesson. And remember, if a rhino can flip a buffalo like nothing, imagine what it could do to the bear. But anyways, people, do you think I should have added any other animals to the list? How do you think a giraffe would fare up? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and check out the rest of my content.